Fine. Hi, Kelly.
I'm missing.
It's just us.
Seriously?
Well, we're a little early.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah, I
a
was
little
thinking I had my alarm
multitasking.
set for 5 till, not 10 till.
Oh. I know.
Are you the one running the meeting?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm
I thought if you were able to get in already, then you must be running it.
No. I figured I'm still trying to learn all this stuff, you know.
Well, Isaac is already getting SSI, but like we're getting ready to send tax stuff in, which I asked my friend, are we supposed to report SSI? I said, I don't think I got paperwork for it. She said, you should have gotten paperwork. And she said, I don't think we did it last year. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. Then I probably asked this question to somebody last year, but. And then, I'm just like, when he does start working, then I don't know how that affects everything. So.
I know. Make sure you pay attention so when Alyssa turns 18, I can come to you.
No, No, we both know you're going to be the one who's going to know more. And even though you get to it second, I'm still going to be coming to you.
I'll be like, I think this is what we do. I know. I feel like it's just a whole new world.
Yeah.
I know. And then we've even start talking about like, okay, what are we gonna do? Okay, maybe we should be quiet now. Okay, bye. This.
Hey guys. Sorry, I've got screaming babies in the background.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
We are all ready for you.
All right. You guys hear me?
We can.
All right.
We got a little bit of time for people to hop on, but I figured we can start letting people into the Zoom.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you again for doing this. The amount of people that are thrilled about this Zoom is stifling.
Well, it is a wonderful thing if you can get it. and there's always people that have no idea about it. So I think it's always a good thing to talk about it at least once a year. So
yeah, that's what I had a conversation with Amy Eiten yesterday or the day before yesterday. And I said, this is just one of those things. It's going to be a redundant thing yearly or every other year. But I mean, it is so beneficial. And so many people don't know about it because it's just word of mouth.
yeah, and it seems like when you do know about it, if you ask around, it's like you don't always get the most consistent information even.
Absolutely. Well, and even calling Medicaid, a lot of them don't even know about it.
Oh yeah, they're like, we don't do that. I went to the office, I think like 3 or 4 times before I finally got somebody at the office that was like, oh yeah, we do that. Like, I know you do this because I know lots of people. just can't take, you just don't take no for an answer. Are you feeling better?
Thank goodness, yes. That was a scary couple of weeks that everything got really serious really fast. I had really bad, I thought it was kind of an ovarian cyst or something like that. And the pain just kept getting worse and worse and ended up in the ER. And I think they took me back faster than some of the cardiac people. And I got to a room and before I knew it, my husband didn't even make it to the hospital in time. They were running me back to the OR. I mean, I had like wind in my hair as they're trying to get me into the OR in time. And then I spent 5 days in the hospital, and that's hard when you got a 3-year-old with special needs and a 9-month-old at home. So
yeah, your husband and all of your support people were probably going crazy, and you were probably like, let me out of here.
Yeah, I was begging doctors like, please today. But thankfully I have my in-laws drove up 8 hours while I was in the OR, and they got up late that night. And Nick is such a competent parent. He was able to, he was able to step in with little to no lap.
But yeah,
he is such a great dad. So I'm really lucky.
Yeah, that's good that you at least felt, confident while you were in there.
Yeah, no, I knew Nick had it covered, but thank you for asking. It was a long 2 weeks of.
I'm glad you're feeling better. That's rough.
I mean, I can be a good judge. They say it's more painful than childbirth. And I did just give birth to a baby within the last year, and it's absolutely more painful than childbirth. So we are really lucky. I'm glad to put that behind us.
Yeah, it's nice. We have hospitals so close too. So
absolutely.
I don't know.
I'm gonna send a reminder on Facebook. What now?
I said I don't know hardly any of the new parents because of
that's
COVID.
The whole point. That's the whole point. There's if you only knew how many people
I don't get to see any of these new babies.
It is, we've got March 9th, we've got an event coming up.
Yeah,
And
I
then
saw
we've got
that. I'm like trying to look at all of my kids' stuff and
Well,
and the baseball. My son's he plays high school baseball, so that's already started. So
oh yeah, that's busy. That's busy.
yeah, so I'm like, and he doesn't
Well,
drive.
we haven't announced it yet, but we've also got something planned for World Down Syndrome Day, and then we're going to do probably another repeat of the activity we did last year because it was so fun, where we painted flower pots and then planted flowers to bloom in there at a park somewhere. So we've got some good stuff planned. More trying to have, a lot more occurrences of being able to get together, so more people are able to meet rather than just once or twice a year. So
Yeah, you guys are doing a good job.
thank you, I appreciate it. We're trying. It's hard with littles.
Oh,
Things are busy.
Yeah, it gets better when they get older, but then like Lucy's been sick like this whole year, so
oh my gosh, it's been awful.
I think she's missed like 20 days of school this year.
Wow. How are you holding up?
We've been at the doctors more than like good. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I understand that, but that gets really, really exhausting. So I'm sure you're pretty ready for spring and summer to kick in.
I'm like, yes. Can we not do this, weather up and down? I love these days, but it's not helpful for staying healthy.
That's a good point. Let me, I'm going to really quick send the link again because there's some people asking for the link.
Okay.
Oh. I can hear my baby screaming downstairs. My husband's faint.
My kids usually go to bed at 7, so I told my husband, I said, put them on to bed. Bye. Hear him down there. Where's mom?
Being a stay-at-home mom, it's funny how a Zoom about Medicaid is the highlight of my week.
Yep. I'm like, oh, adults? Yes, adults.
Exactly. I just had somebody reach out asking for the link. Let me send that.
That's fine. It's not a.
There you go. Linda may have been able to. It was. Let's see. I think we can probably start at 7:05 if we can just give them a couple more minutes.
Okay.
And I am recording this, so because the DSAGC requested to keep this on file for new Kentucky families.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and mute everybody. And you can get started.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Abigail Kessinger. I have 4 kids. My second child happens to have Down syndrome. She is 8. I have a 15-year-old, 6-year-old, and 3-year-old. So they keep me pretty busy. I found out about the Medicaid waivers when Lucy was a baby, and have been on the Medicaid committee when they were trying to revise it and things like that. And my background is nursing. I'm a nurse, and I actually did compliance auditing for Medicaid and Medicare for hospitals. So I didn't know a lot about insurance and Medicaid waivers. So I don't know how many of you are on the waivers. How many of you guys know anything about the waivers? Anybody on the waivers?
Patrick
I know
Dempsey's
my
on the
family
waiver.
I'm sorry, is it Linda?
Yeah, Linda Dempsey, Patrick Dempsey's on the waiver, Michelle P. waiver.
Okay, Michelle P. waiver.
Alyssa Train is on Michelle P.
Okay.
Kelly Eibel, my son Isaac, is on Michelle P, and he is 19. He also is receiving SSI, but that doesn't mean I understand it.
Okay.
Emmy is on the HCB waiver,
Okay.
and we're on the wait list for Michelle P.
Okay. Is anybody else on a waiver or on a waiting list?
I do know that there is, I'm not sure if she's been able to hop on yet, a mom that I spoke to that is in the process of trying to get onto the HCB waiver. So I know there are some moms that are still in the younger stages that they're trying to get on the HCB. So.
Okay. Yeah. So basically I'll just start from the very beginning. So Kentucky is one of the better states for individuals with disabilities under the age of 18. So they do have these nice Medicaid waivers, which a lot of people kind of get confused thinking, well, my income's too high, I can't get a Medicaid waiver. So you can actually, if you apply for the waiver and get the waiver, that's how you get Medicaid. So the way Kentucky has it set up right now, and most of our kids will get the HCB waiver while they wait, or some just stay on it before the Michelle P. waiver. The HCB waiver is the home and community-based waiver. All of these waivers fall under the 915C waiver. So if I post a lot of times if they're asking for comment on the 915C waivers, and a lot of people will say, my kid's on the Michelle P. waiver, they're not on this. Yes, they are on a 915C waiver. They all fall under the same regulation. So if we ask for comment, it's good to kind of give feedback as to why it's good and why we should keep them at the state level, because they're always trying to tweak, you know, like money, like pockets of money and things like that. So the home and community-based waiver was originally put in for like assistance with ADL. So like if you need help at home, that's why sometimes younger kids have a little bit trouble getting on it. But most of our kids don't have any issues after the age of 5. So home and community-based waiver does not have a waiting list. That's your best way to get on now. You want to get on the waiting list for the Michelle P. waiver. The Michelle P. waiver was created for individuals with an intellectual disability. So that's our kids with Down syndrome. The waiting list is at least 8 years. It is a higher paying waiver, and it does offer more things than the home community-based waiver. So if it comes, some people would say, well, I'm already getting the HCB waiver. Should I do the Michelle P waiver? Yes, you probably should do the Michelle P waiver. All of the waivers will give you Medicaid, which Medicaid you get for insurance. And it's actually awesome because it pays for all of these things that private insurance do not cover. Hearing aids, if you need an iPad for communication, they'll pay for that. They'll pay for the apps, those sorts of things. And you can either use the Medicaid once you get it for your child as the primary insurance, or you can keep your regular insurance that you're paying for through your provider and take Medicaid as secondary. So first it would go through your private insurance. Whatever you are responsible to pay, Medicaid pays. So all those co-pays, or if you have a high out-of-pocket max, Medicaid pays. So essentially, you don't pay for hardly any medical expenses anymore, which is awesome. You do have to kind of watch, like some providers, like our pediatrician doesn't take Medicaid as the primary payer, but they will take Medicaid as the secondary payer. And now the state of Kentucky has, if it's not confusing enough, when you get Medicaid, because Kentucky has Kentucky Connect, you can select whichever Medicaid you want. So there's the MCO Medicaid, so like Humana Medicaid, Anthem Medicaid, traditional Medicaid. I opt for traditional Medicaid, and I think it's the best because everybody pretty much takes it. Anthem Medicaid, hardly anybody takes in our area. If you live in Lexington, a lot more places take it. So before you decide which one, you might want to ask your providers, like, your pediatrician, would you take this as a secondary payer? Or, Children's takes a lot of everything, because they might say you're offered these certain things, so they want you. And if you also opt for traditional Medicaid, you can get reimbursement for if you keep your primary payer, you can also get reimbursement money, which is it was K-CHIP, now it's K-HIP. So they can reimburse you each month for your premiums, and you'll just get a check if you qualify. The only person I've ever heard not qualify was Julie. So I don't know if you got that.
No, we are still fighting it a year later, but I think we're getting close.
Yeah, because you're literally the only person I've ever heard of that it did not qualify. So, so there are other waivers. There's acute head injury, long-term head injury, typically. And then, as somebody else said, there is the one that you can get on the waiting list for, which is the SCL, which is really meant for individuals after they're 18 or older, and it helps them find like housing. So it helps pay for where they would live and someone to come in and kind of take care of them, which is, you can use the respite money and attendant care on either one of like the Michelle P waiver or the HCB waiver. The biggest thing, so each waiver will give you respite care, which is you can hire someone or you can hire from an agency. So you can either be your own broker where you get to pick who you want to hire, or you can pay an agency to do that. Most of the families I know are their own broker, and you can do that on any of the waivers. And that way you can pick who you want to work. And the Michelle P, what's nice about that is you're supposed to be that the money for attendant care is or it's called CLS on that one, but you're supposed to take them out into the community. So you log into the app and they want you to take them places. Now the home and community-based waiver is more, you're supposed to be coming into the home, helping take care of them in the home, like cooking, cleaning, that type stuff, which you can still do on the Michelle P waiver, but you don't have as much ability to like the whole point of the Michelle P hours is to take them out into the community. Same thing with the CLS waiver, but that one just offers more for living in the community, helping pay rent and things like that through the waiver. All of the waivers offer a social worker who kind of follows. They should see you once a month. You need to make sure that you follow those because that's kind of what keeps you on the waiver. So if you don't do your monthly visits, you could lose your waiver. It's really kind of one of the only ways to kind of lose it. Every year you'll be reassessed for the waiver, and it's kind of the same paperwork, but you just want to kind of think of, you know, like what things do they need help with? You know, can they use a microwave? Do they have tendencies to run? You know, they'll kind of ask you those types of questions. And the nice thing about the waivers, most of our kids do not get totally potty trained, sometimes ever. Sometimes it's a long time. They will pay for diapers, pads for beds, that sort of stuff. You get up to, there's not really kind of like a limit, but if it's under $500, they'll just like kind of send it to your house. Like this year we were able to get with some of our funds through the waiver, we were able to get a bigger stroller, like that would hold her because she's 50 pounds. So most of like the Wonder Wagon doesn't really work for her anymore. And we like to go places and she gets tired. So that was like covered. We did have to get a prescription from the doctor that said, you know, so she can participate in community activities. But we got, you know, a $500 stroller covered through the waiver, which would have been expensive if we would have had to pay for it ourselves. So it covers, the waiver will cover a lot of costs in that fashion. Medicaid also, like if you needed a wheelchair that you had to have oxygen and all of those things, Medicaid would cover that. Usually it would go through Medicaid and Medicaid would pay for it.
Hey, Abigail, real quick. I'm seeing in the chat, Linda asked, can you change your Medicaid provider? I believe she's referencing, can you change from an MCO to traditional once you've already established? Would you mind answering that really quick?
Yeah, sorry. I guess I should put my chat. So you should be able to, if you want to change, you'd have to talk. Who's your case management through? Like,
Sorry, I'm not very technologically
oh, that's all right.
We have Cassie Pugh. We go through North Key.
Okay.
And I would suspect that I'm a nurse also, so I would suspect it's like open season kind of deal. And this is terrible. I don't even know if I have the traditional or anthem. All I know is it's got a horse on it. Isn't that terrible?
The horse
is
traditional. The horse is traditional. If it's white, if it's not, yes. If it's not, it'll say, you know, Anthem Medicaid or Humana Medicaid.
Right. Yeah.
And most of the providers are pretty good about giving you the traditional one. But
it's actually ours. We have insurance through my husband, so it's actually the secondary anyway. But like you said, we hardly pay for anything. Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, for our pediatrician, if I would have opted for Anthem Medicaid, even though we kept our primary, they would not be able to see us. If they don't accept your secondary payer, you can't go there.
Wow.
So yeah, Children's is great because they accept pretty much everybody until you get down to some like specialties. But yeah, so pediatricians though, not through Children's, are more particular. And I like when you get older adults, certain providers like a lot of GI specialists will be like, oh no, we don't accept. But you should be able to change your provider when it's the re-enrollment, which I think is in October. And they do send you like a paper that says, you know, you can change during this time. You get that, you know, paper of how long that you know, it's good for the year, and it'll tell you. But you can change that on an annual basis. Somebody asked, I think it's Tina asked, are there a list of things that could be covered? You've named things we could have covered but didn't know and paid for things like strollers, iPads. Your case manager, there is a list, like I sent out on the email that the Down Syndrome Association sent out. I sent out the link of the page that is the Kentucky, like the Kentucky actual page. And under there, they have like everything that's covered. But I usually will just ask my case manager, like, oh, could this stroller be covered? Oh, like hearing aids are covered through Medicaid. So, in a lot of like classes and things like that, and just from asking other people, like I know people that are on the way, so they're like, well, we got a stroller. So it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll ask for a stroller. And you can pay for most of like the apps, but they have to do it. Like usually anything under $500, like I said, like, so a speech, if you see somebody, a speech pathologist, they could say she needs these things on her touch, whatever app that they use. My daughter uses Touch Talk. So the speech pathologist says she needs these, and these. And actually the school did her whole thing. So, but Medicaid paid for it. So Medicaid sometimes will pay for stuff and sometimes the waiver will. So like if we would have done it ourselves, it probably would have been like the waiver monies paying for it. It just, but always ask your case manager. And if they tell you no, because they turn over kind of frequently, I usually just reach out to like other people that I know that have been on it for a while, or didn't you get this? Or, you know, so then you can say, well, I know, because they usually know that we talk to each other. So they'll say, well, well, yeah, you can get that. How did they get it? Or what did they get? So, but there is a list, like if you look on that page of the link that I sent out, and it'll tell you like what you get. So like goods and services, so you can purchase goods and services used to reduce the need of personal care. So like that, diapers and all that stuff fall under that. If you need help with like, if, you know, meal preparation, somebody bringing that in, specialized respite care. So, I mean, it kind of is individualized to each person, what, you know, like you need. And you obviously can't get an unlimited amount of stuff. So, I mean, I know most people will use like the diapers, wipes. You can even do like, if they still have to wear like swim diapers, that falls under that too. I know people have gotten like dehumidifiers on their furnaces because their kids have severe allergies. So, I mean, it's really just unique to each, you know, person. I know some people have gotten things modified in their house, like rails, fences for those runners. So,
I mean, man, we just put in a fence. I should have thought of that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, like, yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask and, you know, just see what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I do know people that have gotten fences put in. I mean, we haven't used it. And sometimes like alarms and stuff for doors, that type stuff. So, I mean, just ask your case managers. Most people either go through North Key or the ad. So, and I know they always kind of have turnover. So if the person doesn't, you can always say, well, I know somebody before got that, and they'll check it out for you.
So I know we're probably going to have a ton of questions. Why don't we hold everything in the chat until the end, and then we'll kind of circle back around if you're okay with that. That way you're able to get through your
that's
spiel.
So basically, the waivers were created because individuals like ours used to be institutionalized. So these waivers are just waiving those institution services that we want them to stay in the community. So it's basically saying that they need more help than their typical peers. So these waiver services are given to them to help them both medically, and so someone can help them out in the community. So sometimes that could be a parent. So whoever you're paying through the waiver to watch them. I know daycare is pretty hard to come by. And, most of us sometimes don't want to put our kids in daycare either. So that's one of the things that you get. The respite care has to be used by someone not in the family. Like it can be like a grandparent or somebody like that. Everybody has to be over the age of 18. Of course, there have been times that they have let siblings like that are 16 and 17, like where they watch after school siblings. So, but it's not really in the regulation. So I don't know how they've kind of gotten away with that. I guess maybe they can't find anybody. So you can either if you choose to be your own broker, you can choose who you want to be the broker. So that's who's going to do all the timesheets and things like that. Some families choose to have one of the parents be the person who gets paid. Some people will find people. I know a lot of families struggle to find people sometimes. So it ends up being one of them because they can't find anybody.
You must die.
So who's eligible for the waiver? So basically they use they'll do an assessment, and they're basically looking like what medical needs you need. So nursing level of care, and also like, do you need more assistance than someone that is typically your age? So there's a handful of questions that they always ask. And I always tell parents to think about like on your worst day, like on your child's worst day, what do they need help with? Because I know sometimes we're always like, well, they can do this if you're, helping them, but you want to make sure that, you're, that they're going to qualify for things that, you're helping them with a lot of things. So most of our kids are either on the HCB waiver or the Michelle P waiver. So the HCB waiver will say, and sometimes when you call, they'll say, well, they have to be 65 or older, but the other requirement is that they just have to meet a nursing level of care. So most of the kids who, if they have a feeding tube or oxygen, will qualify. If they have severe sleep apnea or need like more care, they usually will qualify. After the age of 5, almost all of our kids will qualify because they need more assistance than your typical kid at the age of 5. Kind of as a baby, they'll say, well, all babies need you to make all their stuff, change their diaper and all that type of stuff. And then the SCL has the longest waiting list. And like I said, that one is a great one for them being able to live in the community. So like it can pay for their rent where they're living. And then it also has funds for someone either to stay living in the house with them, and it would, pay for them to help them take them to the grocery. Transportation's also included under that one. So if there is transportation is kind of an issue. If there is transportation, if you live in the city, you'll probably be able to get some transportation. If you live like rurally, probably a little bit harder to come by. So when you apply, Kentucky has changed things. So you used to be able to apply in person, or through the agencies would kind of help you, but COVID kind of put a snafu in the in-person help. So everything now is through the Kentucky Connect. So the Kentucky Connect is the same place that you would apply for any services in the state of Kentucky. So if you need SNAP, if you need SSI, if you need Medicaid, if you just don't have insurance and you want to elect insurance through the state of Kentucky and you're just a typical person, it all goes through there. So when you go to the Kentucky Connect page, there's 3 different balloons when you scroll down. There's a balloon that says apply for all benefits. That's where you guys want to go if you haven't applied. So the way that it works is they are going to initially make you apply for Medicaid. So they didn't used to make you do this. So you have to put in all of your information about all of your income. So the majority of people don't qualify for Medicaid because when your child is under the age of 18, your income counts. And it's pretty bare bones to get Medicaid. And you can't have more than, $2,000 in your bank account. You can't have your cars count as income. Usually the first one doesn't count, but the second one counts as income. So if you have 2 nice cars, you will never qualify for SSI because that car counts as income every month, the second one. So you have to apply, you have to put in a whole bunch of all of your bank accounts, your other kids' bank accounts, what your mortgage is, all that type stuff. So when you put all that in, you're going to apply for Medicaid. Then what happens is you're going to get either accepted that you qualify for Medicaid, or you're going to get denied. When you get denied, then they'll start the process of the Medicaid waivers. So you want to make sure that you check the boxes for all the Medicaid waivers. And then they'll start looking at, so most people, like, you'll get a rejection letter from Medicaid that says you do not qualify for Medicaid. So most people will freak out and think, well, I don't qualify for Medicaid, I'm going to stop there. But that's not, you shouldn't stop there. So then the waivers will happen. And then you'll either get a call from North Key or the AD. And they should start the process for the waivers. So home and community-based waiver is the one you can get now. So they might tell you that you're not going to qualify if you have an infant. You tell them you want to apply anyways. So, and then you want to get on the waiting list for the Michelle P. waiver, and make sure you always update your information, because they'll send you a letter once a year and let you know that you're still on the waiting list. And when you get your numbers up on the waiting list, you'll literally get a letter in the mail, and it'll say you have to call us within 28 days or your spot is going to be given to someone else. So if your mailing address is not accurate, you won't get it, and then you'll have to start all over. So it seems like it's taking about a month after you get the rejection letter for someone from the home and community-based waiver, somebody to call you to set up a time to come out and do the assessment. So then they'll come out and they'll do an assessment. They had been doing them over the phone. Some are still over the phone, some are in person. And once they do the assessment, then they'll tell you if you qualify or not. At that point, that is when the agency will apply for Medicaid for you. And then you'll get Medicaid through the waiver. So you will only get Medicaid through your own application if you qualify based on your income. After your kids turn 18, then they're kind of on their own. Your income no longer counts. However, if they live in your household, they do take into consideration like that they, that they live in your household. So a lot of parents will, charge rent or whatever because it otherwise it decreases their SSI money that they get. So after they turn 18, they will get SSI more than likely. But that's after they turn 18 and they're considered an adult. So it's based on their income, if that makes sense. So a lot of people don't qualify when their kids are under 18 for SSI because the income's pretty low. Unless you have, even if you have a lot of kids, it's still pretty low. So the like I said, you can either decide once you get the waiver if you want to keep your original insurance as primary and then Medicaid as secondary. If you do that, you can get KHIP, which is also nice because they'll send you money for part of the premiums. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. So if you do have issues when you're applying for the Kentucky Connect, there is an email it's on that link that I sent, and there's also a number. They will tell you to call that number and ask for help. Most people that I've helped recently have said that's been pretty helpful. You have to kind of call at certain times where you get in. So, and the other thing, someone had asked online, like if you do an ABLE account, that money doesn't count in the $2,000. That's the other thing. When your kids get over the age of 18, they cannot have more than $2,000 like in a savings account, in a bank account, or else it could make them not eligible for Medicaid. If you're on a waiver, that does not affect your Medicaid, but it will affect their SSI money. So like if they're getting $800 a month SSI, if they have $3,000 in their bank account, they're going to count that as income and they're going to say, we're sorry, this is just an example, you had too much money, so now you're only going to get $300 because you were, whatever. So they'll change their money. So if it's in an ABLE account, federally it's called a stable account. Kentucky changed the name to ABLE account. If it's in that, you can have, they just changed how much you can have in there. But you can have however much they say, which is a lot more than $2,000 in that account. If someone wants to, say a grandparent dies, or, parents setting up things after, you want to either do a trust or, that's the best way to donate, because if you give them a large sum of money and it doesn't go into an ABLE account or it's not a special needs trust, they can lose their benefits of SSI and things like that. So just something to consider, like that $2,000 is not very much money nowadays. So, they really are very limited after the age of 18. And if you're a parent, you can't have more than $2,000 if you're getting SSI money, or else it's going to really keep decreasing that. So you can't have any money either. So those are kind of the biggest like sticking points where a lot of people will lose like their SSI money or Medicaid if you're not on a waiver. So say if you're 18, 19 years old and you are getting Medicaid and SSI, but do not have a waiver, you could also lose your Medicaid if you have too much money. So if you have a waiver, your income really doesn't affect your Medicaid. But down the road, or not down the road, but if you are qualifying for Medicaid based on your income than it does, if that makes sense. So if you're on a waiver, how much money you make really is not affecting your Medicaid status. Let me see. Trying to think what else. So basically your waivers, like the main things that you get, and they'll assess like based on when they do the assessment of your child, they will tell you how much attendant care you get, which is basically, like they're going to come in and provide services. So you might get 30 hours, you might get 40 hours, you might get 20 hours. And those hours you hire somebody to come in and do those things. Respite is for you and whoever are the primary caregivers to take a break. In the home and community-based waiver, you kind of get allotted X amount of respite hours. The Michelle P. waiver, everybody gets, I'm trying to think I think it's $4,000. It's either $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So you can use that however you want, and you can pick how you want to pay people. So if you want X amount of hours, you can pay somebody $15 an hour. Or if you want less hours and want to pay somebody $20 an hour. If you want to use them to go on a week vacation and pay somebody to take care of them for that week while you're gone or whatever, you can do that. Or you could use it every other, week, or you want to go out every Thursday, you can use it on Thursday. So you can use it however you want. You cannot use any of your services like during a hospitalization. So if your kid is hospitalized, you cannot use any of your hours like while they're in there. If you take them to an appointment, you can use it. But if they're inpatient, you can't use any of the hours. If they're like in school, you cannot like pay somebody at this like school to do things with that money. But you could pay somebody to pick them up from school and take them to your house and things like that. Trying to think, am I missing anything? Let me see. Somebody's asking about okay. So basically somebody asked, where can you get signed up for these? So that's at the Kentucky Connect, which let me see. Let me send
I had a question.
If you want to, you can send really quick. You can send me the link to the Connect, and I can comment it on the Facebook post too.
Okay. All right. I just put the Kentucky Connect in the chat. I was trying to find how to share my screen, but I never do that very well. But so if you go there, you have to create a login. They've changed it several times recently, but when you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there are 3 hot air balloons. The purple one in the middle is the one that you want to, and it says all the things, which they used to just pick what you wanted to apply for, but what they're trying to, I guess they found that a lot of people were missing things. So like if you're eligible for Medicaid and SSI, you're probably eligible for SNAP, like food assistance. So they're trying to avoid people missing services that they could be eligible for. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that if you have Medicaid, there are a lot of things that you automatically qualify for. So if you have Medicaid and your kid's under the age of 5, you automatically qualify for WIC. So it's not like you get a whole bunch of things from WIC, but you get formula. So if you're on an expensive formula, that's how a lot of people will get that paid for. So that's very helpful for a lot of individuals. And even if you're not on an expensive formula, you still can get regular formula per month or whatever. So that's one of those odds and end things that you kind of get. So difference between North Key and the ad as far as benefits. They're just they're just the brokers. There really is, you get the same, unless you decide that that's just who your case manager's through.
So the reason I asked that question is we were with the ad and our broker left and we liked her so much we switched, which I will tell you it was a dumb move because the NKAD had different background checks. And so for like 3 months, maybe longer, I had to pay for my services out of pocket because they were not covered. Because as soon as we said we were changing, they dropped the NKADD and then it took 3 months for all the background checks to be redone. So just if you're thinking about that because you like your broker, don't do it. Just saying. And then the big thing, and I've asked a couple times and it doesn't really make, for me right now, it doesn't make a big deal. But for a while when we were at NKADD, we were fortunate we had a lot of people we worked with. But if one of my personal care people worked 25 hours and another one worked 25 hours, that was covered. Now they're like, no, they won't pay more than 40 hours a week and nothing in his services have changed. And then my other big question is, so my son is 27 and he hates he hates going on vacation. He's got some autistic characteristics. He works, he plays piano, he's pretty high function, but he hates going on vacation. And I think I can only use 40 hours of respite a week. Well, that doesn't, is there something that I'm aware of? Like, I know the Point has a place where he can go, but I don't think that would be good for him. He really likes being in his house, his room, and like, is that like, that makes no sense. I mean, we're actually working on going on vacation in May. We already, his one interventionist is working. She made a book and we're talking about, 6 sleeps and you get to come home. But just at dinner tonight, he said he's not going. So that was one of my questions. Like, what else is there? Am I missing something on that front about using the waiver or?
Yeah, well, they just did change, which was one of the things that they changed, is that you used to be able to save up, like a lot of families did this because school year, your kids are in school or, so that it's different. So they used to like to save up hours, or if you're going to go on vacation, so that
Right.
you could double up. They did change that. So I'm not sure if that would be different if you were still at the ad versus North Key. That's one of the things that they did change. And a lot of people are kind of upset about it because of the whole vacation thing. So
Yeah, I mean, 40 hours isn't even 3 days, it's not even 2 days.
No, not if you're going all 24 hours. I mean, that could be a thing that you could bring up with the case manager. I mean, we haven't done, we take her on vacation or whatever. But
he was
she does
fine till about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, she's ready to go home after like 3 or 4 days. So we typically will bring somebody with us that's like, that she knows, that will stay in the house with her instead of going down to the beach or whatever. So that's kind of how we get around the whole. But I would bring that up with them because that is one of the things that some of the families have complained about because of the way that they've changed it. So I don't know if that's something that if you say, because you're supposed to be able to use your respite. And I mean, obviously they need more than 40 hours because if you're not home at night, they still need somebody to watch them. So I don't know if they And I know you can get paid, you know, they can get paid if they're watching them, even if they're technically not awake, because, you know, they still need somebody in the house. So
Right.
I don't know, because I mean, that's new because of not being able to say, only being able to use the 40 hours, because it was not like that before, but that's a new rule change. So,
This, I don't know if this is helpful. This is Megan. So I know that respite is still technically a lump sum, like it's one bucket. It's not like attendant care where you have to use it per month or week. But there is a new rule about the max threshold that you could spend in services in a day. And I think it's like $210 or something like that. So depending on what your rate is for attendant care and what your rate is for respite, you might be, we were hitting our max threshold at the 200, even though we had the hours, because we were using too many respite hours along with the attendant care once they raised the rate of attendant care. So we've had to talk with our broker and talk with protection and advocacy about exemptions and what that could look like moving forward.
yeah.
So it
I'm
wasn't a
wondering-
kickback on the hours. It was the total amount of money, which wasn't a problem before they raised the attendant care rate. Now is a problem.
Right. So, I mean, and you can change like how much you want to pay. You know, you can decide. So, I mean, that could also be something that if you stay under the amount that you can, or like, you know, you might look into an exception with your, you know, case manager to see if they can, you know, put it through to see that every year we're going to go on a vacation and we want to be able to pay X amount. And I don't know if like what you typically pay per hour, if it's under, because they don't tell you how much you can pay. So I don't know if it's under, if you could pay that person more per hour to, you know, and still stay under and pay them and just, it would be 40 hours, you know, I don't know. But they'd be there the whole week, but they're only getting paid for 40 hours. I don't, you know, technically, I don't know as if you're allowed to do that, but some people will, because the home and community-based waivers don't pay much, they'll sometimes give them other money on top of it, which you're technically not allowed to do either. But I know that has come up with a lot of people now that you can't, and now that some of the wages have went up too. So that would be a good question to maybe ask your broker your case manager, if they can. Because that's new, because you used to be able to do it. You can only be on one waiver at a time. So someone asked if you can be on the Michelle P and the SCI. So you can only be on one. Now, each, like the home and community-based waiver, I would say is good and get Medicaid. The Michelle P waiver, you get more on, and you get more on the SCI. So, because it also encompasses housing and that sort of thing. So, I mean, if you had to pick between the two, you probably want to move up to the next one.
How do you do that?
They will let you know when your spot, like, we were on the home and community-based waiver, and so then we got the Michelle P waiver. For the SCL, that one has a waiting list of like forever, like it's like 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
So they have started to offer some emergency spots. So like, like if, you know, if they are homeless, you know, and they need, so they're starting to do it like based on more of like a need.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that they're kind of trying to tweak, because nobody's getting on the waiver, and it's like, oh, well, this person has nobody and they need a place to live. So now they're opening up emergency spots. So they kind of look at, so I mean, if you get close to you know, the point where your kid is able to live, you know, in housing or something like that, that's, you know, maybe start asking like, where am I at on the list? How, you know, like that sort of thing.
Okay.
But that is even longer than the Michelle P. waiver.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so when they ask about that, like us as parents need to be saying, yes, we need to make sure that this is available for more people because there's not a lot of spots on that one.
Yeah, she's 33 and we're living in my grandma's house, which is paid for, but there's 10 kids that own the house, and now we're getting evicted because the youngest sister wants the house. So it's kind of a situation where, okay, we got to get out.
Well, so
And
that might be a great in to ask your case manager that you currently have right now and say, this is what's going on. Where is she? Like, because
I'll talk to
when
her.
you probably applied, you might not have gotten on the list for that.
I probably didn't. I
So
didn't even
I
know
would
that.
ask them if you can get on the list and
Okay.
just tell them what's going on and say, you know, like you know, she's going to be homeless. So what can be done?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just see how that goes.
Thank
Because you're probably not on the list because
I
you had
don't
to
think
apply for all of them separately.
I didn't even know about it. I was just grateful we got on Michelle P because that list was long. So
Oh yes, it
I
definitely.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, so somebody said I was told it was 8 hours in a day. I don't think there's actually, like, for the Michelle P. waiver, there's not a max of hours per day. It's the week. Because I mean, you can do, I don't know, you can do 24 hours if you want. You just have to stay in your time frame of what you're allotted for the week.
Isn't there a guideline where you have to at least take 8 hours out for sleep time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe I just make these things up. I don't know.
No, I mean, not that I know of. I mean, I know sometimes people will do, you know, I mean, you could be up with, if, you know, if somebody's watching or whatever, they could be up. Maybe they're not sleeping because they're sick or whatever. I mean, I think if it's like on a regular, but there's no stipulation of, I think if you're always doing 24 hours, they would probably start to look at.
I worked 12-hour shifts and that was never a problem. And then we would go out of town on a weekend and we would have 24-hour coverage for like 3 days. Like we would kind of save the CLS and have people doing CLS and then a respite person at night and then go back to CLS. So there'd be times where we were gone for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and not ever a problem for years. We've been on the Michelle P. waiver now for like 8 or 9 years. So yeah.
And
I know the HCB is not like that because we can only log 9.52 hours per day. Sorry, the baby is very opinionated.
Well, the difference between the home and community-based waiver is that the home and community-based waiver is basically you're supposed to come in and help them with things, and it's not as, I guess, it's not as well thought out as the Michelle P. waiver because the Michelle P. waiver is to take care of them, you know, in their house. It's also to help them go out into the community. So it's basically to help them with their whole life. Whereas the home and community-based waiver is not. It's, you know, you come in and help them with their ADLs or with their nursing level of care that they need, which is kind of, they need that everywhere, but that's not how you can do it, if that makes sense. So, I mean, it's definitely, because I mean, we've used the Michelle P. waiver in the same way that Linda has used it. Working, you know, 12-hour shift and someone, you know, being with them during that time or whatever, and you can use respite on the back end of it. So it's never not been like that, but I know the home and community-based waiver is more limited to, you can only use these hours during, you know, like the max and stuff like that. So always ask your case manager if you have questions, because they have changed some of it. Okay, so Michelle P, max 40 hours per calendar week from all services, including behavior, respite, CLS. This is new this year. Okay. So
I actually come up last month. I'd went on a vacation to Hawaii and I had to have someone to watch her. And we could only do 40 hours, even though we had a behavioral therapist coming this week. The caseworker made us go in and adjust the hours because now it's all done through the app. You log in, log out. Actually caps it out at 40 hours. You cannot go over that from all services.
okay. So that must be new this year. For your Michelle P waiver, how many hours do you have for your not attendant care, the CLS hours? Do you have 40 hours a week of those?
Me, I only have like 8 hours for CLS, and then respite we hardly ever use. So we were just banking it all at that time. In the past, we were able to do it. Like I've heard some say you could do more than 40 hours because they didn't really catch it because it was all paper formed. Once it's gone to the app, it kind of blocks it. So it makes it more difficult, and it catches if you didn't use it before. You could kind of not use it. You really didn't lose it. Now it's catching all that. So it caps it out once you hit those maximum CLS hours or whatever, and it doesn't let you use it anymore with the app.
We have 36 CLS, 4 hours of behavior, and then the $5,000 in respite. We just went to Tampa and we were gone 4 days, and we used respite and CLS and had almost 80 hours. It was all on the app and all paid for.
Yeah, some people get more, some people get 40 hours of some people get more than 40 hours of CLS. And then you still have your respite, and I know that they use them. So I don't know I know that there is a limit to I don't know how much that you can pay out. So I don't know if your respite was over I don't know how much you pay per hour, but that doesn't.
It might have been she only has one provider. We have 3 people that come in. So no one person had over 40 hours. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, that could.
Well, I was told
they don't want to pay overtime.
Well, I was told I had one provider, but she said it had to be with behavioral therapist came in that week as well. And she said I had to make sure I kept my respite hours below whatever the behavioral therapist was coming in, because it would all come out of the same one. It actually locked it up in the app. It wouldn't let me finish out the time of my respite worker because it had exceeded. So it kind of froze up the app, and we had to totally delete an entry to be able to get it to pay out.
That's just, if you're over 40 hours, you have, if you're over the amount of hours that you're allowed to use, if you only have 8 hours of CLS, you can only do 8 hours of CLS that week.
Yeah. You don't have to stay on this subject. I just knew that was something we'd come up. People were asking about the max. It doesn't matter. I'm good with it. But, I was just thinking that was a point somebody was asking about it maxing out. And I knew this had just come up with me last month. Yeah. And that's what it was, something new this year, that it could max out, that they would not pay over 40 hours a week.
Yeah. I think they'll pay over 40 hours if it's different, in different categories, if that makes sense. But there is a max payment for the respite. So if you're paying so much per hour. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Have you touched much though on SSI about how, like my daughter's getting ready to turn 18 in about a year. So what's the process and the steps? I've been told that some people that we need to have private IQ testing done with children so she doesn't get denied. So there's a lot of that stuff that's confusion. So I thought maybe you were going to touch on some of that a little bit more.
I mean, as far as SSI goes, they have to have, I mean, one of the requirements is an IQ test. If you have, I mean, if you have one and if it's, under a certain number, it should be, I mean, they just have to have one. Some people haven't had any. So you have to have one done before they're 18.
I just met with the Thomas Center last week, and she had actually suggested that we get IQ testing done with children's. She said that SSI would not accept the school's IQ testing because that's for educational purposes. So I met with a psychologist at Children's and stuff too, but Medicaid doesn't pay for it. She said it was going to be about $2,500 out of pocket that we were going to have to pay because my insurance is high deductible. So insurance wasn't going to cover it. Medicaid won't pay for it. So I didn't know if anyone else has approached this. Is this something that I need to be spending and doing, or is this unnecessary?
I mean, we did IQ testing through the Thomas Center, and we have primary insurance, and she has Medicaid as secondary, and Medicaid paid for it. So I don't know why they wouldn't pay for it.
We had it done when I was younger through the Thomas Center, but I was just actually there last week, and they said flat out Medicaid will not pay for it through Cincinnati Children's through the Thomas Center.
Tina, Isaac is on SSI, and we did testing with him. I mean, it's been like years ago that we had it done at Children's. It's probably been at least 10 years. So when he was 10, 11 years old. So whatever I used for SSI had to have been the school report.
Yeah, I just
I know I didn't get a new one.
Katie Throwman, however you say her last name. That's through the Thomas Center. It's one of the main doctors.
I'm not sure. I haven't been connected with the Thomas Center for quite a while.
So we went there just to kind of get ready, and she was like very overwhelming, gave me a whole bunch of information. I'm like, I am way far behind. I got a lot to do this next year. And that was one of the things, was that whole IQ testing, all that stuff. So I was just trying to get.
I would call the Social Security office and talk to somebody there.
I would call them. I mean, online, you only have to have an IQ test. So if they've had an IQ test sometime in their lifetime, that should be sufficient. And the only reason you might want to get another one is if for some reason it was higher or, whatever. But I just think it's weird that she would say that it's not covered. I mean, unless things have majorly changed, but she had hers done not too long ago. And we always see Anya. So I would contact the Social Security office and ask them.
Well, she did say that they would cover it, but it would be whatever Kentucky Medicaid offered. Once she turned 18, they would do the testing. But she said in her experience that it has been denied a lot because they would ask my daughter, say, do you want to work? She would say yes. So then, okay, you want to work, so you can work. So we're not going to give it to you. So that was her recommendation, was to have it done first. So we had it in hand, so then they wouldn't question it.
That sounds crazy to me. I mean, I was the one who went through all the questions with SSI. They asked Isaac a few questions, like basically him giving them permission to talk to me. And that was pretty much it. Everything else I pretty much answered. And, he qualified and everything seems to be fine. So I would check with SSI.
Yeah, I mean, and Down syndrome is a federal diagnosis that you should be covered. So it's one of the 15. So it's not like they don't have the diagnosis to go with it. So I don't know. I don't know anybody who's recently, but I would definitely probably just contact Social Security and ask them firsthand if, say that they've had, IQ testing done at this point. Because our school just recently told us, because my daughter is going to be 9 and they want to do IQ testing, and they told me that she was going to be denied Social Security when she turned 18 because I was refusing to do IQ testing. So I don't know about all of that. So
I just to weigh in, I obviously have a child in a completely different age group because I have a 3-year-old. I did go to the Thomas Center a few weeks ago and got completely conflicting information on Kentucky Medicaid waiver. Granted, that's SSI, but I do think there has been, just in my experience, I wonder if the Thomas Center wasn't quite in the same boat, just because I had that experience a couple weeks ago where I had to call my case manager. It was completely opposite from what they told me. Just FYI.
And your case manager on the waiver probably could answer some of your SSI questions,
but granted, I have a 3-year-old, so I'm in a completely different age group.
I mean, our school helps the kids apply for SSI and all that sort of stuff. So they know all of so I don't know if your school does that sort of thing when they, get ready to turn 18 or not. And I know when I talked with SSI, they said that one IQ test was sufficient in their lifetime. So I don't know if that's changed or if the person that I had the conversation with is different, but that's also what it says online too. So, but there again, that might not always be true either. So I would probably try to email or go into SSI and ask them directly. So you could get the testing done if you need it prior to. And it might depend on your school psychologist and how they do the IQ testing and those things too. I don't know if maybe there's a format.
Yeah, she actually sent me to see Dr. Anna Esbenson for the psychology testing. So I met her, and she was the one that told me that flat out Medicaid will not pay for it. She said that Kentucky Medicaid doesn't cover the IQ testing. That would have to be private insurance only.
Well, I mean, they paid for it a few years ago, I can tell you that. Because they paid, and she did it for my daughter. So, and maybe it's changed. I don't know.
Well, I had it done several years ago, but it was more of a clinical study. And she said now she's fully funded. So I don't know exactly what that meant, but she said she's fully funded now. So I guess now that they don't do any more studies, so everything would have to be paid for.
Yeah, I mean, they billed the insurance. I mean, they billed my insurance the, $3,000 or whatever it was for it, and Medicaid picked up the rest of it. So, I mean, before you spend all that money, I would make sure that it's something that actually needs to be done. Because my understanding is it only has to be done one time. But and I mean, that's what it says on the website, so. And I don't know any parents that are closer, like who are just doing it right now. Like, I don't know if there's anybody at the Down Syndrome Association that would have any parents that are.
Well, like I said, it's been less than 2 years since we did it. I mean, I remember just, calling the Social Security office and, had to set up something. I had to be by phone because it was, during all the COVID junk.
Yeah.
But, it was kind of a long on the phone process. They sent me the paperwork for me to sign and say, this is all the answers that I gave them. And, and then it went from there. Now, he works only like 6 hours a week right now. And then I had to go through this whole other process about, there's all these stipulations about if they make more than so much money, blah, 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 blah. But we're just not there yet that I've, gotten real deep into all of that. So, but I feel like if Isaac can get it, I don't know why Bella couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really heard of very many families having any issues with getting SSI at, 18. So not to say that. So I've not heard what you have heard. So I don't know if that's something new.
Patrick is older. I will tell you, he only had one, and I can't remember all the details, but his IQ was high enough that he was classified as developmentally disabled instead of the one that was lower. And somebody wanted to do another IQ test on him at one point, and we were told, nope, and he only had the one when he was probably 5 or 6, because they said if he grades lower, he's going to qualify for less services. And that's been years ago, but we only had one IQ test, and it was when he was very young, and then we refused him after that. So I don't know, the rules changed though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the rules that I've been told like recently. But they do change, so. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Thank you so much for doing this again. I'm sure we will have you again next year. You are always such a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you taking your time to educate all of us, because this is such a huge benefit of Kentucky. So thank you so much. If you guys have any other questions, I think you're on the comment thread on the event in the Facebook, in the Northern Kentucky Facebook group.
Yeah.
And you're always a wealth of knowledge whenever I reach out to you. So thank you. Thank you for everything. We appreciate it. Have a great evening, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you.